All right. So one of the biggest questions we have as we begin this class called American government is what is government? What kind of government do we actually have here? Okay, and we're gonna use this little video to kind of background that a little bit for you guys to use in class. All right. So first off, a government. Uh, Anytime you have a society, okay, you have people who make rules, okay, and rule over the land. So someone's going to take charge. Typically, we do studies in sociology about who's going to take over. Kind of think like when you guys read Lord of the Flies as sophomores. Okay, same kind of thing here. Somebody's going to take over. Okay, and question is why. Big question is who gives people the authority to do this? Who should people work for? That being themselves versus being for the people. Okay, and lastly, what kind of government do we have here? What kind of government do you say we actually have? So this is why I have a government. So imagine a world with no rules. Imagine a world where there are, you can do anything you want to do. Nobody's going to stop you from doing anything. What may be the problem? Okay, I mean, I can imagine a school with no rules, people making slip and slides down the hallway, that kind of stuff, all be kind of crazy. One of the biggest things we have government is to maintain control, make sure that things keep working in an orderly manner, make sure that things don't get too crazy. We have the issue of safety. People are like, well, I hate when we have speed limits. Well, why do you think we have them? Okay, it's because if you don't, people go too fast, people get killed. And that's kind of why. A lot of this comes down to the question of people's safety and making sure that the public is safe. The question of justice and equality, making sure that people don't take advantage of other people. And that's one of the reasons that we have these laws here as well. Beyond that, looking at some other topics here, thinking about the idea of organization, administration, trying to keep everything efficient. If we're all doing our own thing, it doesn't necessarily always work that way. We're at no chance to really pull together and kind of go towards the same direction. Instead, it's more stuck in terms of making sure things stay efficient and stay the right way. Also, lastly, promote social welfare of people. People can't get on their feet. If people are lagging behind a little bit, how can we make sure people get a leg up that they need and help people out when they need it? And it's the idea of social welfare. We're a type of government, so I asked you guys in class, how many of you guys know? Well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. If you're yelling at your computer screen, that's cool, that works. We're looking at a number of different kinds of governments. A few of them we know here. Okay, one of the first ones is the idea of like a despot, dictator, totalitarian, people call it a presidential type government anyway, where you have a ruler where one person really in charge. Okay, think like talk about dictators, totalitarian governments last year in world history. You have two ways of getting this. Either one, you take the power or you inherit it. You don't be elected in. Sometimes talk about dictators, they're elected in, but they're the only person on the ballot. So Saddam Hussein, the former leader of Iraq, he was elected into power every single election. He was the only guy on the ballot. That's kind of okay. A lot of times people work to keep power, make sure they're not kicked out. And you can take this to a different level. I mean, think about presidents and even our presidential election here. Not saying the president's a dictator. I'm not saying that, okay? But the idea that they're going to work with it, do what they can to make sure they stay in office and don't get elected out, don't get voted out of office. So, who are the people here? For the people, and when you have a dictator type situation, totalitarian government, there's no real power to the people at all. Okay, you can try and get power. What you want to call a coup? It looks like coup, but it's coup right here, where you can try to take a place over. But really they have to follow the commands to get punishments. And usually, this dictatorship happens when you have this one person with all kinds of power, and they'll use different methods to keep that power, including violence, possibly. Okay, and usually we see this big gap in people. Change can take place in a dictatorship through a coup, which overthrow. Otherwise, really, it's not going to happen too much. Okay, you're not going to see much change happen. Democracy. We always say United States is a democracy. Question is, are we really a democracy? Well, democracy means rule by the people. The people vote on everything to make decisions, or they can choose people to elect representatives to make their decisions as well. We'll get that in a second. Now, the idea of democracy, you remember from last year, started in Athens, Greece, where the male citizens met on the Pix, as the hill in Athens. They got to get together, all the citizens, if they wanted to come, debate and vote on different city laws. A lot of times, half the citizens didn't show up. If they couldn't get enough people to actually make a vote, they had to run through the agora, the public market of Athens, with a rope with paint on it. If a citizen got touched with the paint, he had to go vote that day. Kind of crazy anyway. But they debated and voted on different laws and decisions for that little city-state. Okay, remember, Athens was a city of about 30,000 people. And they could do a voice vote. They had secret ballot as well if they needed to. That works great. It's called direct democracy. We're the people in a direct democracy. People have a lot of power. Okay, they're not required to participate, but you can. And the question is what people don't want to go. We talk about voting here in the United States. And on a good year, 40% of Americans come out and vote. Okay, people have quite about the pros and the cons of this whole idea of direct democracy. And we'll get to our Democratic Republican in a minute here, but pros is people make all decisions, right? But the con is that is a very efficient government. I mean, you have to have everything debated, discussed, and decisions made. And so there's a lot of different pros and cons to look at in terms of the idea of democracy. Now, obviously, change here is made by the people. They can do that. They can convince each other to vote that way. And that's where we're talking a lot of our class is going to be about the idea of debate and about civil discourse. How can you use that discussion to convince people to follow what you want to do? Next, we have the Republic. So the Republic was first used in ancient Rome. They would elect representatives to rule over them. So kind of a little bit of democracy in terms of the election process. Elect different leaders to terms like council for a one-year term, or longer sometimes for certain things. So you elect people to make your decisions for you. So, the power of the people is that they have to choose representatives, okay? Now, the thing is, back in Rome, they didn't choose everybody. They didn't choose senators because they were upper-class men, that kind of thing. By the way, citizens back then were men who owned property and were the upper class of patricians, not plebeians, you remember from last year. And so they had the right to pick, people around the country. And we can't do that today to a degree. We have a more democratic feel to it because we have every citizen is allowed to do that. So you start seeing the mix of republic and democracy in our government here. Obviously, make change, you vote somebody in. They were able to do it every year. We can do it every, 2, 4, or 6 years. The idea of gaining voting rights. Plebeians, the lower class in Rome, actually threatened a civil war to get their vote, which is kind of cool to think about, okay? And so you think about our rights, our country here, look at our country's history. At one point in our country, only white male landowners over 21 could vote. They became all white men could vote. They became African-American, all men could vote. They became 1920, all women could vote at over 21 over. Then by 1970-something, or 1972, 53, 4, whatever it was, all people on the age of 20. Also, under the age of 18 can vote. So, look at government. It kind of compares some stuff there to our government and the process here in terms of mixing, the idea of democracy and republic. Now, capitalism. This is not a government. This is an economic system, but it does play a role. People talk about our country being a capitalist country. Capitalism means that the price is decided upon supply and demand. So, if people really want it, price goes up. If there's not a lot of it available, price goes up. If there's way too much stuff that's made, overproduction, price goes down. People don't want it, price goes up. Think clearance racks, okay? That's your 10-second lesson on capitalism, all right? Question about capitalism is government involvement. And the idea that if you have a truly capitalist country where it's decided by prices, the people decide what the price are going to be through how they act. A laissez-faire government here would mean that there's no government involvement, okay? The problem is that then the government can the companies start doing stuff. You have monopolies and poor treatment of workers, that kind of stuff. The more government gets involved in trying to make changes, the less capitalist you're going to be. That's where we get to the idea of communism and socialism that were born in the 1840s. So during the Industrial Revolution, again in Europe, a lot of rich factories in Europe, and they had a lot of poor workers. Very unequal system. The guys that own the factories are rich. People who work in the factories are poor. And so Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, who made this, they call the upper class the bourgeois, okay, French term, and they call the lower class the proletariat. And so they develop these new systems. The idea of communism here is the idea all people share power. You get the work you need. You get paid what you need to live. I think like a hippie commune type thing. Remember from freshman history class? It's kind of like where you all work together. You all have one goal, and you all do everything together. Socialism is a little different. Socialism is more of an economic system where it's basically so the government is going to guarantee all people get access to what they need. I'm not saying we're all equal, right? But you get access to what you need. Food, healthcare, shelter, those kind of deals. Okay? The idea is that, I wouldn't say no social classes, okay, or everyone's equal, even that level, but everyone's taken care of. Everyone's a little more on a structured balance here. So, I tell you the idea of modern socialism. We talk about modern socialism in an election. If you follow the election all this year, you're going to hear a lot with Bernie Sanders, especially about the question of being socialist, all that kind of stuff. That's where the country will run or have a lot of involvement in different parts of the economy. So, if you go to Europe, different parts of Europe, okay, the government controls healthcare. Okay, you can have any kind of operation you need done, and it'll be taken care of by the country. Now, they're going to decide if you need the operation, obviously, that's part of it. Schools. Some schools in Europe, some countries in Europe, you get free college education. You pass a test, free college. Some countries in Europe, you'll even get free paid vacation by the government. The government requires you to take 2 weeks vacation. I'm not sure I've taken 2 weeks vacation in my life. And so it helps run the economy, and it helps make sure people get everything that they need. And that's what it comes down to in terms of being more of a modern socialist type country. So, in pure communism, obviously everyone's equal. I mean, no one's more powerful than the other person. It never actually happens that way. We never actually seen a pure communism type country in the world, unfortunately. We've never actually seen it work. You know what I mean? And just unfortunately, but we've never actually seen it work. And the question is, will it even work? And when I talk about in world history, maybe talk about communism, we did not in world history last year. We raised the question of, can it work, or does as people's as our human nature get involved in that? Because you have to work together. The socialism here, sometimes people depend upon the government to get something they need. That way, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you're gonna get what you need coming to you. So, what are we here in the United States? We're a little bit of everything. We are a mutt, okay? We're some democracy. We have aspects of democracy where we have voting by all citizens, okay, on issues, or at least representatives to choose to decide our issues. So our representatives are supposed to be our voices in government making our votes for us, okay? So we're going to see the democracy, that republic, okay? The republic, like little r, not big R, okay? Big R is like the party. We have some presidential with the idea of president being able to make executive orders, those kind of things. We didn't talk about federalism yet, but we have the idea of federalism here too, because we'll talk about federalism in a later assignment, where we have a government that splits power between the federal and state government. So states have some jobs, federal has some jobs. That's part of it, okay? Economically, we're some capitalists, but we're limited because the government does get involved in the economy a little bit. And so that plays a little role in that whole idea, too, of what are we. And we're going to talk more about this probably on Monday. We're going to talk more about this. You're going to do an activity in class on Friday when I'm not here. So please do your watch. Please make sure you do your notes. We'll check these off. And thank you guys for trying this out for me. I appreciate it. We'll see y'all in class.